Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our April 8th Select Board meeting. I call this meeting to order at 7:01. If everybody could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll start with public comment. Per the Select Board policy, public comment is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between citizens and the Select Board. It is a citizen's opportunity to express his or her opinion on issues of town business. The board may respond to a public comment by taking it under consideration when deliberating on an agenda item or referring the item to the administration for appropriate action or response. Public comment shall be for a period of up to 15 minutes, with speakers being allowed 3 minutes to present their material. Is anyone here for public comment? No? Okay.
Nope, someone raised
Oh.
their hand.
Yeah, you can come up to the podium if you're here for.
Sorry, I'm good.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on to our governmental reports. The first one we have is a presentation from Root Cause. We have Lucas Orwig and Kieran Blizzard with us. Our deputy town manager's been working, D. Casey's been working with them, and they're here to give us an update.
Great, thank you. So Lucas and Karen, do you want to take it over from here?
Sure. Can you hear us all right?
Yes.
Okay. And if we share screen, you'll be able to see it?
Yes.
Awesome. Is that a good setup you guys have? Okay. Sorry, my internet is being a little bit slow.
Give it a second to load.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. My name is Lucas Orwig. I'm a project director with Root Cause, and this is my colleague, Karen Blizzard. We're pleased to be here today. I'm just going to share a quick presentation about work that we've been doing with the town of North Andover for the past year. First, a quick overview of who we are. So Root Cause is a nonprofit consulting organization. We're a team who works with nonprofits, with municipalities, with organizations large and small around the country to help them improve their work and make a difference for their communities. And we were engaged recently to conduct a diversity, equity, inclusion audit with the town of North Andover. So if we move on to the third slide. So just briefly, we're going to go over a quick explanation of what we were here to do. We'll share recommendations that came out of the work that we did, and then share some of the findings that led to those recommendations before naming some potential next steps.
Awesome. We were brought onto this project with a clear purpose outlined by the town, and that was to conduct a town-wide community survey to understand what diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts might make the most sense for the town to take as the next step after the previous commission had been put on pause, and to understand what the priorities of the residents, folks who spend time and work in the town are, and how those priorities could lead towards making changes that would benefit all. And so the way that we did this was first to just get an understanding of the town and what work has been done to date. We worked with Dee and Melissa to articulate some draft DEI values to ground ourselves and guide the process. Assessed, all of the existing services, policies, and programs that you all have in the town already, and learned what other towns are doing. So we looked into all of the bordering towns, some towns that are comparable in Massachusetts in terms of size and demographics, and then also what some towns that are considered more cutting edge with their DEI work are doing. We got to speak with many folks from the town. And so we conducted 3 focus groups and had 2 open town listening sessions. And then the biggest chunk of the work was designing and analyzing results from a town climate survey, which we'll share high-level findings from soon. We're really happy to get 179 responses to that. That's a really good response rate for the town, and we were pleased that the demographics of respondents closely mirrored the demographics of the town. And that is what leads into our recommendations that are outlined in our final report.
So for this presentation, we wanted to start with recommendations, not kind of bury the lead. And so I'll go through this in some detail. Basically, we were considering different kinds of structures for how the town might continue attention toward diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there are a couple of options. There could be a commission similar to what had existed previously. And there could be a task force, which would be more limited in time duration. It would have a specific goal in mind. And we landed on something that's sort of a modified task force-esque structure that we're calling a working group. And so the benefit of a working group is that it's not subject to open meeting laws. And so much of the work with diversity, equity, inclusion is really relational. It needs to happen in almost one-on-one settings and allow for difficult conversations that you might not want to have recorded. Some of the things that you need to work through don't work well in that kind of a setting. So a working group would allow more trust building, more direct relationship building to allow the work to really build slowly across the town. But we don't think that you want to lose the transparency. Like, the benefit of a commission and having the open meeting is that everybody in town knows what's going on. And so we think it would be important for the working group to have a regular series of public meetings that are subject to open meeting laws, where they're reporting out what's happening, the kinds of things that are going on in the conversations that they're having, and allowing everyone in North Andover to weigh in and kind of have public comment. Another way to get to that transparency is to be very clear about what the goals of the working group are. So at any given moment, they would pick a single goal and pursue that goal and report back to be how it's going. And our recommendation for the first goal is that it actually be a series of one-on-one interviews with as many community members as possible to establish values related to belonging. I think starting with this one-on-one relationship building method can be a chance to really hear from a lot of people and really understand the individual perspectives. And then the working group their task would be to assemble some themes across. And just a final note, we inclusion, and in the course of our conversation, we heard that this is a polarizing term. There are some folks who really like that the North Andover is focusing on that explicitly, and there are others who take great exception to the idea. And so, there might be a way to settle on belonging as a more widely accepted term, but just be aware that whatever choice is made going forward, some people are going to feel good about it and others might not feel good. So we're thinking about whose comfort we want to prioritize. And just another little bit about how the working group might be organized. So we suggested that we start with these one-on-one conversations, but the real question is who is going to be doing those? And we think this could be a good opportunity to really do some targeted outreach and recruitment to try to bring people into this group who maybe historically have not been deeply involved in town leadership. One of the things we heard from a lot of our conversations is that the sort of typical town meeting commission structure, there tends to be certain people that are really feel comfortable in those settings and other people who don't. And so in order to really have a fully representative group that is capable of kind of connecting across all of North Andover's perspectives, we'd want to do some outreach to really find people and bring them in. And the other thing that can help is to have some external facilitation as that group gets started. This kind of work can really be emotionally charged. It can bring up a lot of questions as people begin to work through difficult conversations. And so having a facilitator can really help make sure that everybody has a shared understanding of what it means to be doing this kind of work and establish some norms and processes and skills for that group to be able to facilitate themselves going forward. I think it would be kind of a bridge in the first year or so just to get the group up and running smoothly and be able to do well in those one-on-one conversations, and then eventually to be able to facilitate, whole town conversations over, potentially charged topics without having too many problems along the way.
Awesome. So I'm just going to walk you through 3 of our headline findings that we based this recommendation on. And so the first is that North Andover has a really strong foundation. We heard from a lot of people that it's a friendly community where people are neighborly, help out one another, that it's a really good place to raise a family. And that showed up in the survey results also. We had 94% of folks say that they feel connected to some community in North Andover, and about 3/4 saying they felt connected to, almost the entire community here, which is great. The other thing is structurally, the 2018 master plan is a really good foundation. It's not intended to be DEI focused, but it's working on, meaningfully improving the material realities of residents, which always has equity components of it, right? And the transparency of the dashboard website is a really just like a really excellent thing that we didn't see with a lot of other towns. And so we think North Andover is a little bit ahead on that, which is great. That being said, while most people are feeling, well connected to the community, people are experiencing North Andover differently. So we saw a lot of need for continued and sustained effort around inequity and intentional creation of inclusive spaces and belonging in the town. So one of the biggest questions we asked is, have you witnessed personally or experienced harassment or discrimination in the past year? We had 56% of people say no, and then 36 said yes, and of those, like 22% of folks said, twice or more, or for 2 or more reasons. And so, if you're thinking that doesn't add up, it's because I don't know is also an option. But these split results are really showing that people are experiencing the community differently. And so we had, 17% of respondents saying they've, had personal experience with harassment or discrimination on the basis of race or ethnicity. Also, socioeconomic background was a large category as well. So we do see that even where folks are feeling connected, there's a range of things from microaggressions, insensitive comments, to more serious experiences that folks have had in the town that need to be addressed. And then one of the bigger things that we learned is that there are some structural factors in the way that the town works that can make it challenging for some people to participate. So Obviously, you all are here at town meeting, which is great. We heard from a lot of people, especially parents, who said that it's really challenging to be able to make it to town meeting, to find time to, come and share their perspectives, even though many of the folks said they value North Andover as a good place to raise a family. And so they have opinions, but maybe not time. Or there's some accessibility issues, language barriers, that sort of thing. The sort of similar issue is that there are a lot of, formal processes, right, to make decisions about what goes on in the town. And those processes have some of the same barriers to access. And so not everyone's perspective is being included. And we don't see a clear sense of whose perspective is being included. And so it's hard to know exactly how different minority groups are feeling around specific policies because they're not able to contribute in the way they might like to. So those are the main findings. There's a much longer report if you're interested.
And so, we think there are still questions to answer. And so like our recommendations stop short of saying, there's quick solutions for any of the issues that we notice. And we say that because we think it's important to really engage with more residents across North Andover. We have questions about whose voices we maybe didn't hear from in our process, to hear concerns that we might have missed. Maybe there are inequities that we didn't notice. Maybe there's more work happening across North Andover. We heard a few kind of anecdotes about people who are just within their apartment building trying to create a more welcoming atmosphere, or within their religious congregation, there's work happening to try to increase inclusion and belonging. So there's pockets of existing momentum. It'll be interesting to uncover more of those and connect them to one another so that we can work together across the community. And I know that there's other efforts underway now focused on the school system to think about these issues. And so hopefully, if the working group does get created, they can take up some of these issues and begin answering these questions. I think it's a great start for North Andover. I guess we'll pause there and see if there's any time for discussion.
Are there any questions from the board?
I have a question. A lot of these findings that you mentioned are not super surprising to me, but does the larger report include recommendations on how to accomplish those things? I think that we all know we need to reach different segments of our population, but we need help figuring out how to do that. So does the larger report include that kind of information?
So the kind of headline recommendation about putting together a working group, I think is the first step, right? Bringing together a group of people in maybe a different way than a standard commission tends to get put together, so that there's some effort put to bring people in who wouldn't just raise their hand when an opportunity comes up. Finding folks who are, for whatever reason, reluctant to join. And I think because it would be a working group and not a commission, you have the flexibility to structure it in a way that it can accommodate different people's schedules and different kinds of, some of the barriers that we noticed for, membership on, say, a commission. And then that working group, having that range of people on it, is best suited to kind of noodle on some of these deeper problems of trying to expand access to a number of other things. I think we heard a lot of really interesting ideas that do show up in the report about how, say, to make town meeting more accessible to folks, or the commission meetings more accessible, and those sorts of things. I sort of hesitate to lift those up as this is the solution, because we only heard from a small subsection of folks, and I don't think that those are clear solutions just by themselves right now. Like you'd want to test those ideas with a broader group of folks to see, you know, would this really work for you? Would this solve some of the issues? The survey that we did does highlight a lot of reasons why people have had trouble engaging, and I think you can use that list as a way to kind of brainstorm potential solutions, and then having a working group that's really focused on belonging and inclusion might be able to take some of those ideas and make sure that they're going to work and maybe workshop them with a larger group of people.
How big would the working group be? Like, what's an ideal size for that?
It's a good question. I think, you know, 15-ish is a typical kind of size for this type of a group. Like the thing you want to balance is it needs to be large enough so that you have a good cross section of the North Andover community represented. You want folks from, you know, multiple racial backgrounds, religious backgrounds, ages, gender, all of the kind of diversity that you see across the town would be nice to try to have represented. But then you don't want it to become so large that it's difficult for them to collaborate with one another. So I'd say less than 20, and sort of, you know, you could go by interest and who's available, and you know, it's flexible, right?
It's kind of the size that we had for the DEI. So how do we avoid, like, how do we not adhere to open meeting law? Is it the structure, or?
So our thought when Melissa and I in our conversations was a task force probably less than that, maybe 9. Again, it's going to be that individual outreach to get people from parts of the community that aren't currently participating. But some of the issue that we had with the commission was that with 18 people, it's a high watermark for your quorum, and we faced a lot of quorum issues. So I think a smaller group of invested individuals, I think, will be a better way for us to go.
I was wondering, because you talked about that it was difficult getting people to join the group because of their busy schedules, or just, you know, just working people, working single moms, and with, you know, what about the Zoom meetings, so that we make it really easy for people to participate? So if they're at home because they don't have a sitter or can't afford a sitter, that they still can participate. Have you tried that in other groups or communities, or?
Yeah, that is one of the ideas that was floated, like when for making it more accessible. If you look at one of our survey questions was, if you were unable to participate as much as you had wanted to over the past year, what were the reasons why? And we gave people a lot of options to check. And I think, you know, there was a big range of reasons cited, and some of them were, you know, timing of the meetings, location of the meeting. Those were up in maybe the 15-20% range, I think, for those options. So those are things where having it be available virtually would solve that problem. Another one was just, nobody asked me to step forward and lead. You know, like if they had been more willing to participate, or a few folks were responding that they didn't feel like they belonged in those settings. And so for that kind of a barrier, a different response would be needed in terms of like targeted outreach to folks, or maybe changing the way that the meeting is opened, or how it begins, or the kind of language that you're using, so that it feels more welcoming to a broader range of people. And it's the kind of thing where you could try several solutions and maybe stack them on top of each other, and, you know, go with the easy ones first and then build from there. And I think having a working group that's focused on this can really help you test a solution, see how it goes, and then come up with, okay, what else could we do? Like, how do we make it even more accessible to even more people? So it's sort of another way you can benefit from having this type of a group where they'll be able to go out and find feedback so that you can get the information that you need to know how successful any of your efforts are.
I have just some questions about the survey respondents. Were they all adults or all voters, or were any students included in any of their survey results?
So the students are being
We had just
surveyed
a
through
couple
the
of
equity. Sorry,
teenage
Karen.
respondents, but predominantly adults across different ages, favored older.
Okay.
And we didn't intentionally target students because there's another consultant doing a more thorough audit with the public schools right now.
And I think you said you're happy with 179 responses. Is that a statistically significant number for a town of our size from a margin of error standpoint? If we're basing some of our decisions on some of the results of this, again, some of these do pop out, certainly on the slide regarding folks who've faced harassment.
I would say no, it's not statistically significant, which is very common for a municipal survey for this type of engagement. And so it is a good response rate for this size. I wouldn't say, we could nail down a margin of error. There is a lot of qualitative information as well. People shared personal experiences that they've had, after they were asked about their experiences of discrimination and harassment, to describe some of them. And so we've themed those, and from those you can see, where might we need to start. But the focus of our work was a starting place for ongoing efforts.
Yeah, it's why we're couching our recommendations as like the main recommendation is there's a good reason to have a working group and to do a lot of work to reach out to as many more people as you can in the first phases of this group's existence, to kind of dig deeper. Like the survey results, I think, help you frame questions that you would ask and go find out more about. So the survey might suggest that these are some of the reasons why people are not participating as much civically as they might want to. And so let's go find out some more about that and see, is that really true and for how many people, and dig a little deeper.
Building on that point, I think maybe it was Kieran who said earlier that some folks had said they didn't participate or contribute in a way that they might like to. Were there, again, anecdotal responses or suggestions as to what that means? Because I think we're all we're used to how we do things here as part of the reason for the whole audit. Did any of those ideas bubble up in the report?
Yeah, a couple different ideas, which I think, it's only a few people saying each, so I think it would be something to dig into. But we heard, maybe trying a different location that might feel less official, or, maybe at the library where if you have kids, they can go be doing an activity if there were childcare. One of the other things we heard was language. There's a growing Spanish-speaking population in the town, and perhaps if there were interpreters, that could be valuable. One of the other things that is just about how the word gets out, right? A lot of folks are just living their day-to-day lives and not necessarily checking the town website. And so
We know.
one of the more incidental findings was that most of the people who ended up clicking to the survey came from the North Andover News website or from Facebook. And so maybe there's some alternative communications to explore with those avenues as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? No? Thank you so much for all your work. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome. It was a pleasure. Thanks for letting us get to know your town a little better.
I guess, what's next steps? Are they done? Are they done with their report and then?
Yeah, so their work is done, and this was done through a community compact grant through the state. So we'll report back to the state that, you know, their work is complete. And then Melissa and I will talk about next steps, which I think really doing that one-to-one, going out into the community, i.e. me, and trying to find those members, I think that's where to start. I spent some time with Gemma Lambert, who is the DEI coordinator in Andover, and that's how she started, really. Her best working task force was made that way. And so I think that's a good model for us to start with. They've had great success next door. So I think I'll take some of what, you know, what her recommendations are, get that task force working group going, and then we'll build upon some of the suggestions about how do we maybe change our meeting formats, how do we get more people involved, how do we communicate with those populations that we haven't communicated with in the past. This dovetails very nicely with the project that's being done with the school department, which is a full equity audit of the town, which we've done, started with Root Cause, but the school department. So they surveyed students, teachers, parents. They had, they also talked to people on the town. So the equity process and Root Cause worked together to coordinate their information, and then equity process did a lot of work on the school side. So we'll be getting that report. We're in phase 3 of that project. So that should be done by June. So the two together will dovetail nicely into giving us a community-wide look at some of the things that we need to be addressing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our planning board report. We have the chair of planning here, Eitan, to give us an update. Hello.
Okay. All right, so we good? Okay, so most of you have heard this speech at various times, but for those who haven't, every year the planning board by statute is required to give a planning board report at town meeting, where the planning board makes its recommendations as to articles that have any either directly involve zoning or some sort of aspect of planning. So before that, we've made our recommendations, so I'll go over what those are and go over the articles that are either coming out of the planning board or articles that we've made recommendations upon. So the first couple that we made recommendations upon are every year authorization to access grants of easements, authorization to grant easements. Planning board obviously recommends favorable action on those. The planning board was given at our last meeting a report on the CPC appropriations. We did, John Simons, who is our member on the CPC, did give us information about all of the different projects. Definitely excited to see some of these, especially the continuation of the boat ramp restoration, which was that was a good example of something that came out of some planning board discussions and some town discussions, led to a working group, and led to some now funding for a good project. So,
And Harry Lake access.
yeah,
Right, Peter?
yep, and you know what? But it's one of those things that we started talking about, and it led to plans, and it led to discussions, and it's nice to see those things actually coming to fruition. So the planning board recommended favorable action on all of the CPC funding requests, also including the Recplex. You know, that was something that we approved 5 years ago now, I think. I remember that I was looking. Six?
Yeah.
I was trying to go back and see, and I was like, I'm looking forward to it being built so that my elementary school student going into middle school would have access to it. He's a freshman in high school now, and so I'm hoping that my third graders will be ready to use it.
Crossed.
Yeah, that's what we're going to hope
You're
for.
going to have more children.
I'll wait for your grandchildren.
We're gonna be moving on, Rosemary. So they're all really good recommendations, I think, from the CPC. So, and the planning board recommended favorable action on all of those. There were a couple of citizen petitions. There is one to accept Woodley Road as a public way. Everything seemed in order on that, so we recommend favorable action on that. there's an acceptance of a public way for Ree Street. This one seems to have come back and forth before the boards a couple of times. We did recommend favorable action with a caveat. There is a conservation restriction that is required. It hasn't been obtained yet. It does look like it's in the process of being obtained, so we recommended favorable action upon a conservation restriction being obtained in a form that can be approved by the town council. So it looks like it's a good use to accept that public way, just as long as all the I's get dotted and T's get crossed. Okay. Then there's then there are two that we actually had some significant discussions on in front of the planning board. The first I have here is the Article 20 Historic Barn Overlay District. So I don't know how you want to go about this. So I believe the guys, you have a citizen's petition to hear from Mr. Warden later on. I can talk about it now. I can talk about it then. This is something that came to the planning board as a citizen petition. Basically, the idea was that there was a historic barn that Mr. Warden and partner wanted to use to do some retrofitting of and building of prototypes of a boat, a solar-powered boat, to potentially be used on the river. Very light kind of use, but wanted to use the barn. It doesn't meet the current zoning allowed on Academy Road, so there was a proposal to basically allow for that. What we did as the board was say that's a good idea, but it needs to be both expanded and fine-tuned. So what we did was we worked with the applicant to kind of make it into a more robust district, a more robust bylaw that would add value for not only what he was looking to do, which we thought was a really good idea, but for potentially what additional people may want to be able to do. So this is an overlay district, meaning so one of the questions we had was, does this stop what people may be doing in their barns right now? And the answer to that is no. If you're legally allowed to do something in your barn, stress legally, you can still do that. This doesn't change anything that anybody is allowed to do today. But it does overlay, meaning it adds additional uses. So instead of just Academy Road, we made it for the whole Old Center Historic District. There was a thought to extend it further, potentially Johnson Street, Salem Street, but for now we wanted to kind of keep it in this kind of one central location to see how it works. And the idea is to take older historic barns, so we have a definition over 50 years old and kind of deemed historic by the, I think it's by the Historic Commission or Society. So it has to be deemed historic, clearly identified as an agricultural building and meets criteria for historical structure by national, state, or local historic entity. And then the types of uses that would be allowed are somewhat basically anything that's very unobtrusive, right? So the idea is that you could do a commercial activity that's not going to bother your neighbors, that's not going to be harmful, it's not going to be dangerous, not going to have people in and out, not going to add traffic, not going to add noise, but something where maybe you can rent out this barn and actually maintain it rather than, a lot of them are somewhat going into disrepair. So it'd be a way for these barns to be used, but also kept in their historical style. And so we kind of fleshed out the whole bylaw. It would have been something that we would have probably recommended as a planning board article. We just didn't have time based on when it came to us to do that. So any questions on that one? Nope. Yes? Nope. Sorry, Brian.
Well, maybe, I don't know, would you rather wait for questions until Mr. Warden's had a chance to present on that?
Yeah, he is still here as well.
Okay.
If you have a question for Eitan, it's fine.
Well, I guess my overall question is, if we feel, and I haven't read the article itself, but if we feel it's a good idea, and I own a barn elsewhere in town that's not a part of this, what would be the argument against kind of making it more of a widespread? I know you guys got to see how it is, but if it's the same uses across the board, why would we benefit some property owners but not every property owner of a barn?
Yep. So we couldn't really do. it was much easier in the old historic district. There are only a couple, maybe 4 or 5 at the most, to be able to identify where those are and to be able to say, okay, this is a place that likely wouldn't have any impact. If we said, we thought, we did talk at one point about making it, right, you could, like you said, you could make this apply to every zoning district, but there are zoning districts where this one may not be a good idea, you know, if it's very residential, if there are other, there may be unintended consequences of opening it up so much without kind of examining where all of those are. So where we thought this was the first time we were doing this, we thought it better to start smaller in a known kind of commodity, and then if it works, look for places to open it up. But better to kind of sample it on a smaller set of locations rather than doing something that we couldn't kind of predict, which would then could cause, you know, problems down the line where it's much harder to undo zoning than it is to enact additional zoning areas. So that's why.
But conversely to that, if we only approve this very small area and somebody, I mean, are we setting ourselves up, I don't know if you can even answer this, for a lawsuit or some other, I mean, because we've allowed this in one area but not another area?
No, I mean, because that's by definition what zoning is.
Okay. I
Zoning
just-
allows some things in some
I know,
areas or
it's
not
just-
other areas.
It's hard to, yeah.
No, I mean, if anything, someone in the future might say, hey, this idea would be great in this location, or this idea might be great for, not necessarily barns, for a different type of structure, and
Does
then
it-
you could come and kind of
Does it
look
make-
to that.
Make
but-
more sense to like sort of, I mean, I think it's really cool. I think it's a great idea, but does it make more sense to vet it out further though? Like it said, you said you didn't have time as a planning board to put the article forward yourselves. So I just wonder, I struggle a little bit with like what sort of spot zoning. I'm glad you expanded it beyond just the one barn, but I wonder if there, I don't know, is there a benefit to like fleshing this out a little bit more and expanding it more broadly? And
I don't disagree with you, because in the R4 district, there are some properties that could have, that do have like, you know, 6, 7, 8 garages. And people would love those for, you know, a special car or boat or whatever.
Yep, so, I mean, I think the good part about like a zoning article like this is you can always expand it, but I don't know that waiting another year, and again, the town meeting issues.
appreciate that.
Waiting another,
yeah,
I don't think
that's-
there's any harm in going forward now, and if there are other ideas to bring them forward.
Can we, I don't know that we can do this at town meeting, but can we do it with the caveat that we will look for ways to expand it going forward? Like, I don't want it to just, to just die after this goes through, right? Like, I would like for it to be something that we,
Well, I think it would partly be the responsibility of town council to decide whether or not it's expanding the article, because we're not supposed to expand the article.
Non-citizens petition, right?
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and
Yeah, so maybe town meeting's not the way to do that. So there would be a vehicle for somebody to bring it to you guys after town meeting going forward for you to review it further.
Well, I would say one of the things we actually, a few meetings ago, decided on, and we put together a working group to examine the uses that we have per zoning district. So we're actually just started doing that and reviewing. So, for instance, when we get to the MBTA zoning bylaw, we had talked about there's some new uses that have come up that aren't really put into our zoning. So, for instance, microbreweries or distilleries or things like that, right, are kind of new and hip. They may be appropriate places for them to be in our zoning, but we haven't come across it yet, right? All we have is really retail and restaurant. So one of the things we put together is we're putting together this working group to look at where uses in town may be appropriate. So I think that's something that we could add, you know,
Distilleries in the barns. I get it.
right, yes, right, it's typical moonshining.
It's called the loft,
Right, right.
that they would like both, you know?
Right, so I think that would be a place to look for whether or not there are places to expand a bylaw like this.
It's just, to me, I struggle a lot with, it's okay for you, but it's not okay for,
Well, right now
which
it's-
again, like you said, is zoning by its nature, but
So right now, it's not okay for anybody,
Right.
right? So I think sometimes we have to start small to see, I mean, again, also, I don't see any real problems that would arise, but
Okay,
you
I
don't know
know.
until it
Fair
happens, and I'd rather
be able
aim
to-
small, miss small, you know, that kind of
That's
thing.
proven.
Agreed.
Yeah, yeah.
Agreed.
And other citizens have a vehicle to bring another article forward,
Yeah.
moving in years to come.
Correct,
Right.
correct. And there are many other things, you're right, we're gonna, you know, within the next year or two, we're gonna be talking about accessory dwellings, we're gonna be talking about.
You've been saying that for a few years, so
Well, we know now that it's kind of before the state and that there's potential action in the budget and things like that. So, I mean, these are things that are coming, so sometimes having these small ones kind of showing the way
Yeah.
for what we can
Makes
do.
sense.
Okay. And then, all right, MBTA multifamily. So that's kind of the major, I mean, in comparative to the last couple of years, I'm not sure how major it is, but that is our kind of big project for this year is the MBTA multifamily housing overlay district. So what we've done, and I know you're all very familiar with this, but just for anyone watching that may not be, and just as a summary, this was a law passed in 2021 by the state legislature and signed by the then governor, right? Requiring all cities and towns that have MBTA transit stops or are bordering or adjacent to communities with MBTA transit stops to create for multifamily housing to be allowed by right. There are certain restrictions that you're not allowed. It has to have a certain amount of units per acre, which is 15, and is required to have a certain amount of acreage. One thing that we wanted to make clear is that the law requires the creation of a zoning district. It does not require the actual production of any housing. So right now, what we've tried to do was find locations and tailor a bylaw that would really allow for future housing. It's not really meant for anything upcoming, right? We've had a bunch of projects recently that have all been coming online or in the process of coming online. This is more forward-thinking for more years down the road, 5, 10, 15, 20. And in fact, both of the places that we're recommending as part of the bylaw, there is no current housing plan. There are other projects planned, but we do think could be down the line very suitable for multifamily housing. And that's kind of what the law, I think, is looking for.
Just repeat again for everybody at home. This is just a zoning bylaw. This is not a,
Right.
do
So,
not have to produce.
but we do have to comply. We do have to comply
Yes.
with the law. Otherwise, we are at the risk of losing funding, grant funding, having legal action taken. So we do have to comply. So what we did was, and what the town has done is we had many public meetings to discuss the proposal and ideas. And first it was coming up with, okay, where are these districts going to be? So there were lots of hearings and meetings about that, both at the select board, at the planning board, at public forums. And then these became, we had many planning board meetings, had discussions. We've gone back and forth with amending the article, and then we had public hearings about it as well. So we've been doing that kind of all of the last few months. What was considered was how big the land was, how developed it was, the locations proximate to public transit, to the MBTA, whether it was walkable, and whether it was near commercial centers. What we've done is an overlay district again, so this means that, again, in this zoning, if allowed, you can choose what type of zoning to use, so you don't have to build housing. You can use the underlying zoning, so if it's at the market basket plaza. You can still build, the business aspects that they're building now, right? They just did a new plan to switch the Kohl's and the Market Basket to revamp the parking lot and all those things. So that's the project that's going to be happening for the next 2 years. There's no housing as part of that. So they're still going forward with that project, but this allows housing there. While the housing is by right per the bylaw, we did make it into a kind of a plan. So basically you would have to come before the planning board with a plan that meets certain guidelines that are similar to our site plan review. So there are restrictions for height and density and setbacks and parking and all of those things that we normally require. The two places that we came up with as our final choices were the North Andover Mall, Market Basket. It's a large property, close in proximity to commercial businesses along 114, served by the MEVA bus route, as well as Osgood Landing. Obviously, this was already previously envisioned to accommodate housing under the 40R district, close to business, close to 495 on 125. The MEVA bus route goes there, has the potential for expanding. Both of these zoning districts, we've set building heights at 4 stories. If the 4-story in the North Andover Mall is only allowed if there's commercial use on the first floor or a parking garage. Set restrictions as to building lot coverage and open space and requirements for parking and things like that. Some permitted uses are obviously the multifamily by right, but also an art gallery, brewery, distillery, winery, businesses and other offices, eating and drinking, indoor places of amusement, multifamily dwelling, research and development, retail establishment. And most of these are already generally allowed in either industrial or business, but we thought that for planning purposes, if you're going to have residential housing, these are some things that would be good to go along with that if you have a kind of a large district. So those were what the proposals are for the MBTA family. We think housing overlay district, we think that it's a really strong bylaw. It's been reviewed at least initially by the state. They have a couple of small feedback points that we're going to incorporate, but we were prepared to recommend favorable action. I think the board should be ready to. The changes are going to be small that are going to be required. The one thing we put in at the last meeting was we had put in that the housing here would have to meet our inclusionary zoning bylaw that we've already previously passed. Doesn't make sense to us as a board to make the number less for this new by right housing. We need the affordable housing as well. The only problem is that the state law says that if you have an inclusionary bylaw that's over 10%, that you have to show that it would be financially feasible to do so. Based on the feedback we got from Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, they said that it should be, but we were advised by the state and by the town manager and by town council to put in some language, just putting like a fallback position that if for some reason it wasn't, that we would go down to whatever the lowest percentage that is allowed in. So we think that, the reason we think that they put in this requirement is so towns don't say, okay, 80% of it has to be affordable and therefore nobody can actually reasonably do it. Ours is, we just want you to match what everybody else has to do in town. So we think that that's obviously fair, but we put that fallback clause just to make sure we want to have a compliant bylaw. So that's the MBTA family housing overlay district. We really feel great about it. Jean has worked really hard. Andrew has worked really hard in helping us. The MVPC has been great in helping guide us and took a lot of work from everyone to kind of get where it is. And it's a good bylaw. So we hope that we haven't frankly heard any complaints. So I'm sure that there will be some questions or comments or concerns. I just hope people can bring those up and address them early just because we haven't heard them yet. So that's what we have. I think that's all of them. If you all have questions on those, happy to take any planning questions on those. But I think,
Can I ask an MBTA zoning adjacent question?
yes,
Are you familiar with what Boxford's proposing?
yeah,
And so they're going to propose a district that's going to access North Andover right-of-ways and infrastructure and everything else. As a planning board, what, if any, rights do you have on behalf of the town to mitigate a potential project?
So I think that's probably more a town council question,
Okay.
but from my understanding, very little to none, because it's something that they have to do, and if they're doing it within their own borders, I don't know that we really, I think that's more of a, probably a political consideration than a legal consideration of being a good neighbor.
Very neighborly.
Yeah. So, I did, yeah. That was my, based on the questions that I asked, that was my understanding, is that from the planning board, very little.
You may not know this, and I think Andrew will if you don't, but over the last, say, 5 years, how much grant money have we received? See, this is the key thing. How much grant money have we received that we would no longer be eligible for if we don't approve this zoning?
It's like
6.2 million.
That's what I thought. Yeah, it's a
My
significant, I
slide
think.
says, in recent years, the town has accessed over 6.2 million in funding from the programs. And these are only the ones that the state has currently identified.
Right.
So the state has said these 12 grant programs, either you become ineligible or your bids go to the bottom of the
And
pile.
we know there will be way more down the road, but based on what we've received the last few years, a lot would be at stake here if we don't just comply with the zoning, is what
Correct.
it comes
And-
down to.
Yep, and one other thing is that this zoning bylaw is also amendable in the future. So right now, we need to be compliant so that we're in compliance with the law, so we don't have any issues with funding. But since all of these are by plan, it would be very rare for someone just to go and start building, because the plans are going to have to be approved through the process.
They still
through
have to
site
come
plan.
through
Through the planning board, right. So generally in situations like that, they come earlier and say, hey, this is what we're thinking. They may need waivers, there may need to be future amendments as well.
I mean, often
Things
you
will
guys work
change.
with people for a year or two before the project is even ready to be presented.
Correct. So what, if we're thinking 10 years, 15 years down the line for when these are
Maybe.
kind of projects, I'm sure things will change in the interim where we'll have,
Yep.
and the state law may change as well, but for now, the goal of this was to have places where we're comfortable with, where the state would be comfortable with, and that would be in compliance.
Compliance. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate everything that you and the planning board's done. I think getting the message out that it's just a zoning change, it's not a housing production change or requirement, and that we do have millions of dollars at risk is something that we all just need to keep repeating. But we appreciate all your work. We know it took a long time to get to those two spots, and I think they're good spots to make us in compliance, so.
Yeah, I mean, we did consider downtown. That was the other place we really did strongly consider. But downtown zoning is really kind of strikingly nuanced because of the different areas. And you have commercial, you have residential, they're kind of on top of each other. And then, Sutton Street is kind of a place you might think about, but those are all like condoized down there. So trying to make lots that would be feasible would be really difficult. And so we really said downtown has to have its kind of own bylaw. So, that will hopefully be coming in the future, but it has to be more, not that this isn't thought out, but it has to be more nuanced. This is kind of a blunt force instrument.
Overview, yeah, it's a pretty big
Yeah. So, okay.
Thank you, Jean, too, for all your help and work on this. All right, so we're going to move on to new business. We have Rick Gorman here to talk about the Stevens Pond, an update and fees for 2024.
Good evening, everybody. Back again. Rosemary, this is probably 30th year doing this. Every year, we have to come before the select board because you actually set the fees. We've had major discussions over the years. For Rosemary in particular, I used to come in with two proposals. Proposal was always to keep it level funded from the year before, and then to come up with a creative way to actually make the pond completely self-sufficient, which would mean raising fees, a fair increase. And each year, as we kind of joke about it, we pretty much kept the fees the same way. A couple years ago in 2021, Melissa and I proposed some slight increases each year, and that we've been operating under that model since 2021. From your proposal, you'll see all the great things that we've been doing over the last number of years at Stevens Pond. Stevens Pond is, as I call, is a bit of a jewel of North Andover that people don't really, I don't think, appreciate enough, right? So we're a community that has a tremendous amount of people that can go to their beach houses and go elsewhere. But for a number of our residents, this is our South Beach. This is a place that parents want to go. It's also an amazing place for kids to learn how to swim. And it's just a really nice thing for 9 to 10 weeks a year. We have run into some issues around water quality, going back to the blue-green algae issue a number of years ago, which we have totally under the direction of John Bergesi at DPW. We've had that totally under control. But like with all town ponds and lakes, there are always E. coli testing that we have to do every single week. And we've actually done better than most of our neighboring communities. But because we've had closures in the past, it has affected how many people have signed up. The amazing thing last year, with the craziest summer I think North Andover has ever had, we did not close at all during the summer, did not have to close. The town forced us to close one day when we basically flooded out Stevens Street and no one had access to get to the pond. But the runoff from Fox Hill and everything else always causes a problem. I'm blown away. Dee and I talk about this a lot. I cannot believe that we had unbelievable water quality all summer. So we're optimistic that we've shown that we've got Stevens Pond back, that there aren't closures every couple of days or something, and I think we're going to have more people signing up. I think there was a little bit of a trust issue with our residents, like, are they going to be open for the 9 weeks? Is it worth my money to do that? And I think we're in a good place. We do a really good job of marketing. We have a phenomenal relationship with our DPW to maintain it, to help us maintain it. Everything from water testing to sand raking 3 times a week to providing a lot of different necessities that we haven't had down there before. We actually have a really nice bathhouse office. We have 2 playgrounds. Under Lori's direction, we had our newest playground put down there, the bigger one, 2 years ago, fully complete now. So we got a nice thing. We want to try to keep doing it. As I'm here tonight, is you have to finalize the say on this. And if you look at the finances from last year, we see a big deficit, more than we've ever had. One, we weren't closed for one day, so we have a payroll issue. We also were under a 4-year period to get our hourly wage of our lifeguards and gate attendants to where it actually had to be competitive with other communities. And obviously, with the lack of less people coming to the pond last year in terms of either day passes or permits, you saw that deficit. So, and obviously, that's something that the town select board and the town manager's office understands. You appropriate X amount of money for Stevens Pond every year, and it's up to Rick to try to recoup as much money as we possibly can, and there is always some kind of a deficit. So I think we're in a good place of where we are with what we're paying our staff, what we have to do to operate it, and we have this plan that Melissa has through, I think, 2026. So you have to approve Melissa's plan, which basically goes up by a whopping $2 in terms of the permit, the swimming lessons, the day passes. You'll see it on your graph on that. I do want to give, obviously a big shout out to Rosemary's role as also part of a organization in town. They actually provided us a grant last year to come up with, for people that needed it, to pay for swimming lessons. And I talked to her prior to this meeting. We actually used a substantial amount of it. We still have some money back from last year that we'll use again. Our attitude is to never turn away a family or a kid for any of our youth programs. We don't do that at Stevens Pond also, so we do have scholarships. I appreciate Rosemary's group allowing us to actually do that. So we're able to kind of continue to offer a really good product on this. But again, and Melissa and Dee know this, so I'm coming from a perspective that I really want it to be a self-sufficient without hurting our residents. And I know Rosemary's been pretty outspoken in the past, and I totally respect it, that we don't want to outprice the people that probably need it the most, by the way. But in the same breath, we just need to understand we're probably going to be running at a deficit every year. And I do think when you look at the big picture, it's a small deficit in the big budget that we have every year. But again, I implore you to take a look at it and continue. I appreciate the Select Board's support for Stevens Pond. This is my 20-something year running Stevens Pond since we took over from DPW. And obviously, as I said earlier, it's quite a partnership. I know Jim Stanford's here. Our relationship with the town, our relationship with the health department, which handles a lot of our water quality, our relationship with the town manager's office. It's a really, I think, a very well-run pond, and we need to keep it going, and we just got to set the fees tonight. So I'll answer any questions, or I'll allow you guys to make a motion of what we're charging this year.
So you said that a whopping $2 increase, is that?
Yeah, so on your thing, you'll see this is,
Give into that. And everybody knows I always vote no on increasing.
I know anything over a couple of dollars, you might have had an issue with that. But if you look at it, we started at $75, which was the seasonal pass in 2021. For 2024, we're asking you $81 for a seasonal pass. The swimming lessons over the last few years has gone from $50 to $58. The daily adult pass, $13 to $14. And then the senior pass has always been $35, and we're recommending that it stays that way. You'll also see the season nonprofit, season for-profit. That's only a couple of groups that use it, like Edgewood, and a couple of nonprofits in town. We set a fee on that. So it's more, obviously, the permits, the lessons, the daily adult pass that we're looking at, those slight increases. We've already gotten phone calls of when they're going on sale, so soon as you set the fees, we'll, on May 1st, we'll start selling the permits again.
If it gets just a little bit warmer, that would help.
Yeah.
Today was good.
Today was good.
Today was good.
Today was good.
Rick,
Yeah.
can you remind us what the lessons include? Because it's such
Yeah,
a
it's
good
a good thing.
program,
So-
and I just think it's a good
So it's
reminder
one
to
of
everybody.
my arguments, and I respect everybody's view on this from a financial standpoint, but $50 to basically teach a kid that is an unbelievable price. And I have tremendous amount of respect for the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club, but you're paying a lot more when you go there for the swim lesson. What it does, it's not probably as in-depth as the YMCA, but it's 4 weeks, 4 days a week, and it gives you an hour of swimming lessons. And most of the kids there, Rosemary and I talked about this. This is a thing that I'm going to be pushing a little bit more, is we have a tremendous amount of kids in town that do not know how to swim. And we need to do a better job as a community, kind of advocating for that. And again, I'm not talking the littlest kids too. I'm talking about the kids that come to the youth center. But what it is, it basically exposes them to the water the first time. Our lifeguards actually are the people teaching them. For some of them, it's just not being fearful of water, doing the doggy paddle, that type of thing. But in 4 weeks, we find, and I think the parents will confirm this, that their kids are actually a little bit better in the water than they were when they first started. So some people actually sign up. We have 2 4-week sessions during the summer.
No, I just think it's amazing for 16 lessons.
Yeah,
y-
yeah.
For $58.
The price is
you know,
quite good,
And
yeah.
you're right, it's such an important, and Rosemary, you touch on this too, like it's a community thing that we need to be advocating for, that everybody knows how to swim.
Shortly
agree.
after we took our votes last year or whatever, the Eagle Tribune actually wrote an article basically saying that we must be teaching all of our kids how to swim. It could save their lives. It could save their little brother or little sister's lives if they know water safety. And the one thing that's really nice about Stevie's Pond, and I think I've said this in past years, my dad learned to swim there. My mother learned to swim there. I did. I have 2 lifeguard sons who learned to swim there, and the third one is a fantastic swimmer as well. It's a great program, but, and as we were talking even this evening too, some children, they're called sinkers. They just have they're just so lean, or their bones are heavy, and they literally can't float, literally. They have to swim, and it's so important nobody wants the heartbreak in this town or in their family or whatever of losing a child because they didn't know how to swim. I really feel very strongly, and again, thank you for talking about the North Andover Women's Club. When I approached them, boy, they jumped right out of the gate with that donation.
Yeah, it was great. Like, we have a lot of people that know we don't turn anybody away with the inability to pay with anything to do with the youth center. But there's still a pride issue, right? So a lot of people aren't willing to ask that. So as I told Rosemary the story, Jillian, our director down there, knew we had some money. There were from people going there but not going for the swimming lessons, just to go to the pond with their $75 permit fee or whatever it was. And Jillian was able to do a nice job of actually talking to the parents and getting 4 kids signed up for the swimming lessons, paid for out of basically the grant from the Women's Club. So I think
just love hearing
it's a good community aspect on that. And obviously, the presentation that was first done tonight is another reason. We're a very changing community, one since I've started here in 1988, and we need to make sure we're meeting the needs. As I talked to Dee about this, we need to make sure everybody has access to Stevens Pond, and that means getting there, right? So some people live on the other side of town that, could really benefit from the pond. So the youth center will continue to work on those pieces and to see if we can actually do that. But I do think we got a nice thing here. Our communities in Andover and Boxford all have something like ours too. And I really like how we do it. And hopefully we'll have another good year with no closures, hopefully.
Well, with the fountain, that's made a big difference for my.
The air raid has been the biggest thing. That's Melissa. When Melissa first started here, I've been asking for an aerator for 10 years before that. Melissa invested the money into it. It's been the biggest thing. Jim's office, basically, we found out that Phil Long has turned it on for the year to kind of start getting things going right now. The combination of all the water testing we're doing with the blue-green algae stuff and the maintenance stuff that DPW is doing for us is the reason we're in the situation we are. And I just think we got to continue to value. If we're gonna really value this as a community thing, we got to put the time in, we got to put the money into it, we got to continue it. And to your point, I can show people pictures of people in the 1950s down there. So hopefully we can continue to do good work down there.
It was started by our veterans.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Yep.
long time ago.
Any other questions for Rick?
Just a couple. Do we have a capacity limit on lessons in terms of, or is it just based on how many?
It's really,
instructors you get?
we would have to make it if there's never more than probably 20 or 30 that sign up per session.
Okay.
And the amount of lifeguards we have there, if one day we had 100 kids, we'd probably have to address that a little bit. The one good thing is our relationship with the YMCA. They're actually closing their pools this summer to do renovations, so they have actually reached out that their lifeguards would be available to help any overload on certain things, whether it be bailing us out for the shortage of lifeguards or to the point of swimming lessons.
As soon as they're lesson students.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great.
And I appreciate the historic perspective here on the revenue and expenses. It's almost like inflation doesn't exist at Stevie's Pond over the last 20 years.
Exactly.
It's really, really remarkable. So a couple of years got close to even. So.
Yeah, we did. But I think that part of it is we got to get the trust back that we're
Yeah.
going to be open for 9 weeks and people can
It
invest
was
that
a
amount of money.
really rainy summer last summer too. Some people.
Dee and I talk. I don't know
know.
what was in that water last year, but the fact that we weren't closed one day, because Andover was closed for about 7 or 8 days, Boxford was closed for 7, and we didn't close one day except because it was flooded on the street.
I just think
So-
people might, they would have gone if we had a sunny day to go.
Yeah.
That was tough weather last summer.
So if there's no discussion, you'll have to make a motion on Melissa's fee structure for this year.
I'll move that the select board set the 2024 fees for Stevens Pond as follows: $81 for seasonal, $58 for lessons, $14 daily adult pass, $20 second car, $175 nonprofit season pass, $269 for-profit season pass, and $35 senior pass.
Second that?
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we got
Great.
You got me this year.
Gotcha.
Thank you very much for your support, and we'll be starting to sell the permits on May 1st. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're going to move into our public hearings. The first one is for the purpose of laying out Woodley Road in a as a public way in accordance with MGL C82 and refer matter to the planning board. So I will take a motion to open our public hearing.
I move the Select Board open the public hearing for purpose of laying out Woodley Road as a public way in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 82.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Attorney, you're
Good
Kate.
evening, Kate Barnese with Smolik and Bond, 21 High Street. I'm here on behalf of the Woodley Village Homeowners Trust. Kathy Donovan, who is a resident of Woodley Road, and one of the trustees of the trust, is here with me as well. The Woodley Road subdivision was built and permitted back in 1996, and the acceptance of, or the provision that the road be accepted as a public way was never completed by the developer. So the residents have retained our office to try and usher this through the process for street acceptance 25 years later. We have appeared before the planning board. They've recommended favorable action. I think Eitan may have misspoken regarding the two street acceptance. We're the street acceptance that is pending the conservation restriction with the state. That was also never done back when the subdivision was completed. So we have filed the conservation restriction. It was done back in January. We are in their apparently very long queue for review. We don't anticipate a problem with it being accepted. Once they review it, we submit it to town council. So it would be accepted subject to her review. So that's the only outstanding item at this point, but we're seeking your support for favorable action on the town meeting warrant and your acceptance of the street as a public way.
Any
So
questions?
it was Woodley Road that you're waiting for the conservation restriction, not
Woodley Road, yes.
not Rhea? Okay.
Right. I'm not sure the status on it, right?
I heard there's one person in the state that handles conservation restrictions.
It appears to be true.
And there's and it's common, it's, I've heard other projects, they're
we
waiting.
submitted back January 4th, the actual restriction was submitted to the state, and they didn't send us a confirmation of receipt until March 5th. And from what I understand, we're at least 50 behind in their queue, so we have not received initial comments back yet.
Do we need the conservation restriction before town meeting?
We don't, no. It would be our intent to proceed with town meeting, and if necessary, we would make a floor motion to amend the warrant, just to say that it's subject to the receipt of
It would be
the,
like contingent on the receipt of that.
right.
Any other questions?
I have one question.
Sure.
I've heard Woodleya, and tonight I've heard Woodley. So which one is it?
Woodley.
Oh, neither one.
Any other comments? No? All right, I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Seconded?
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was there any public comment on that? No?
No.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to our public hearing for the purpose of laying out Ray Street as a public way in accordance with MGL 82 and refer the matter to planning board.
I'll move the Select Board open the public hearing for purpose of laying out Ray Street as a public way in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 82.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have Attorney Michael LaRosa to chat with us about this one.
So I'm the attorney for the developer. They apologize they can't be here tonight. Family was sick. Ray Street's an existing street. A couple of years ago, an extension was added on with a 7-lot subdivision. The intention all along was to turn it over to continue the public street, I'll say. We've got Laurie, I think, has the binder. Town council's already reviewed, approved. The plans are there. The 7 abutting lot owners have signed off on deeds, joining in, conveying their fee interest. It should have been retained, but for whatever reason, it wasn't by the deeds from the developer when they sold them. But all abutters have been notified. The 7 lots that were built have joined in. If you have any questions, I'm open to answering.
Any questions?
These are the lots these are the newer homes, right? On that
The
end?
7 newer homes.
Yeah,
So when
okay.
you come down, it used to curve around,
Yeah,
and instead it goes straight to a cul-de-sac.
got it. Okay.
And there are 7 there. So it's basically from that curvature straight to the cul-de-sac.
Got it. Thank you.
And what are they conveying to the town, the portion of their,
Just their fee interest in the
Their
street,
fee.
so basically the street.
no? Is there any public comment? Oh, yeah, you can come up to the podium. If you could just state your name and address.
Sure. My name's Kevin Fluid. I'm at 351 Ray Street. You have to excuse me. This is my first town meeting. What exactly does that mean by the extension? Are they trying to open up the cul-de-sac to make it a continuous street?
No.
No,
it-
I'm
No.
sorry.
Oh, if you could come to the,
Okay.
you can just come to the podium so we can
Ray-
get it on.
Ray, it's hard to show up on that.
Oh, I live
essentially came-
there, so I know
yeah.
exactly what's.
So where that curvature is, it now, when I said extend, they built your street to the cul-de-sac.
Okay.
When they were working with planning to get the subdivision approved, it was actually intentionally ended at a cul-de-sac and not all the way through. So when I say extension, I think I was just trying to explain to them that the existing one just keeps
Okay.
going.
There's
Sure.
nothing new being built, it's just.
Yeah, there's nothing new after.
Well,
Just us.
I just wanted to confirm that they
Yeah.
weren't actually making the street continuous. It's already a very dangerous area that, if you're
Yeah.
not familiar with that.
Yep.
You know, the streets are really narrow and you don't really know who has the right of way. So I'm just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that it wasn't going to be a continuous street. And if anyone has any objection, you can always add more boulders that separate those two, because we have lots of traffic that goes screeching up and he actually tried to maneuver through.
Okay.
So that's all I had to say.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming to town meeting.
It's actually in a few,
it's
in a few
select
more
board meeting,
weeks.
sorry.
Yeah, right.
Any other comments? Or- No? Thank you. Then I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion and a
Second.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we're gonna move on to our votes. The first one would be for the Woodley, what did we just say, Woodley Road? That's-
All right, I move the Select Board accept the layout of Woodley Road as public way as shown in the layout plan and declare that public necessity and convenience require the aforesaid way to be laid out in due hereby order and direct. That said way be laid out as shown on plan entitled Street Layout Plan Woodley Road, North Andover, Mass. Prepared for Ashwood Companies Incorporated by Gate Consultants Incorporated, 33 Forest Hill Ave, Linfield, Mass. Dated 7/30/2012. Project number 2225, drawing number 3519, scale 1 inch to 30 feet, and refer the matter to the planning board. I probably could just say it as written in the.
Second that.
Thank you.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then we're gonna vote on Ray Street, so.
I'll make a motion that the select board accept the layout of Ray Street as a public way as shown on the layout plan and declare that public necessity and convenience require the aforesaid way to be laid out and do hereby order and direct that said way be laid out as shown on a plan of land entitled Street Acceptance Plan, Ray Street, North Andover, Mass, North Andover, MA, prepared by LRC Builders, 475 Boston Road, Billerica, Mass. Billerica, MA, 01821 by Ranger Engineering Group, Inc., 13 Red Roof Lane, Suite 203, Salem, New Hampshire, 03079, dated 1/25/24, scale 1 inch to 50 feet, and refer the matter to the planning board.
I'll second. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in, oh.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question about that last one?
Come on up.
Well, no, we can't, we're,
Unless it's a correction.
is it a correction or?
Well, the diagram there doesn't show cul-de-sac.
Does it make a difference?
The diagram that was included.
Should we
in
reopen the public
agenda.
Do we have to go back to the public hearing? Okay. So we have to, we're gonna have to go back to opening the public hearing. So,
Okay.
if you have if you have comments.
Or concern if it's
Well,
if it's
I'm
not correct.
concerned if the map,
Okay,
That
so
we're agreeing.
we'll have to go back. So this is for Ray Street?
yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move the Select Board reopen the public hearing for the purpose of laying out Ray Street as a public way in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 82.
I'll second that.
All right, a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. If you could, if you could tell us your name and your address.
Sure, I apologize. Beth Williamson, I'm at 356 Ray Street. So the map that's included in the agenda for this evening
Okay.
does not show the cul-de-sac on the new section of Ray Street. It shows Ray Street as being a continuous street.
I actually think that this wouldn't show the cul-de-sac. This is intended to show the land that's being conveyed. Is that correct?
Can't see what we're looking at, so I don't know how to.
I can show you on my screen if you want to come over here and look.
My apologies.
I think it actually does show.
Is this the cul-de-sac? I think it does too. I think it's.
This is intended to show. Yeah, same thing. Yep.
Right.
You see the right of way here. That would be.
That's the right of way, but this is showing as a whole road coming down here, and this is the original plans way back when showed clearly as a cul-de-sac, and then this is a walkway here to.
This just shows parcels, so this wouldn't show improvements.
I believe that's the original subdivision plan. No improvements, no houses, not the final road. That was the original. Down the bottom right, I believe.
Can you go to the microphone just because
Sorry.
everybody can't
Sure.
hear you? So you think,
I believe the plan in
So-
question is the original subdivision plan. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No, that's fine.
off. Before any improvements were made. So no houses,
Like
not
the
when the street was built. It was
original
just when the
plot
subdivision was
plan.
approved.
so there would be no cul-de-sac shown? That's what you're saying? Oh, Brian.
On that one, no. That's why I can't tell what was uploaded.
This is what was uploaded, minus my drawings. So what he has on the computer is what was uploaded. And it's showing, with the date of January 24. I guess, and maybe it's just my confusion as to whether we're talking about the street, which is being taken over by the town,
Talking about
or?
parcels, talking about land, not improvements.
But
So what
nothing will change except we.
I guess
Have to maintain.
perhaps I'm confused as to the intent of this. I assumed we were.
Does Jean
So
have
we're
anything?
not yeah, Jean, do you want to?
Jean, do you have anything to add to this? Is she still here?
Take the comment, close the public hearing, and put your vote off until the next meeting.
As far as we're not making any improvements, it's just an acceptance of the road as it stands today.
As it exists.
It's the acceptance of the roadway. You're laying out the street, which does show a cul-de-sac on the street layout.
Okay, so this is not showing this section as part of the street? Because this is currently a wooded area. The cul-de-sac road ends at the cul-de-sac, and this is a wooded area with a walking path connected to another paved area over here.
But we would be accepting to the end of the street, correct?
To the end of the
Yes.
street.
So they would be accepting,
Well, I guess my
Current
confusion
public
is what we're
lands, yeah.
defining as a street then. Because the paved area ends at the end of the cul-de-sac, and then this is wooded area with a dirt walking path that connects over to the other section of Ray Street.
yes. So the town will be, and correct me if I'm wrong, the town will be accepting the street as it's basically in bold here. Cul-de-sac end to the end of, because it would match up with the end of.
Yeah. Doesn't mean they're
Lot
developing
lines.
that part of the street, so the planning board approval did not allow them to develop this,
Okay.
but it is a street on
It's a street
paper.
that basically goes to the end of the lot one lot line.
Okay.
Which is the developed portion on the other side of Ray Street.
Okay, so none of the maps or anything are going to show that section, that undeveloped section as a road?
No, not as.
Because
Not as a
confusion
defining
ensues
it,
with
yeah.
traffic.
Not as a developed road.
Not as
The planning
developed.
board decision did not allow them to construct that area.
Correct.
They only allowed a walkway.
Correct.
But they left it open if at some point in time, when
Yes.
the intersection with Abbott and Ray and.
Right.
And some other street, if that was ever to be improved, that potentially it could be opened up in the future, but
Yes.
not as part of this subdivision approval.
Correct. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that if this was the plan we were approving, it wasn't actually
It's not
the
developed.
road. It wasn't. I just wanted to make sure there was a clear understanding that
It was
That's
there's
not
the
a
cul-de-sac,
road.
the paved, the,
It's not a paved
yes.
road. Yes.
It's a
And
definition,
they're not approving
schematics.
anything more than what is there now. They're just
Okay.
approving the town taking it
Accepting what's
over and
there.
accepting it.
Okay.
As a public.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
apologize
That's
for
okay.
the confusion,
No.
but I appreciate the time to clarify it. Thank you.
If you have to come up to the podium.
Carlos Restrepo, 29 North Cross. Quick question. Before, when we were trying to understand REA being accepted, they told us it had to be done in a town meeting, your May one. Does this acceptance now count as the town, or it still has to be brought up in the town meeting?
It still needs to go to town meeting as the
So
warrant
it'll be
article.
with your recommendation?
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Then I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So we'll go back to the vote on Ray Street.
Do we need to,
You can just say
Resubmit.
as presented.
make a motion to present the, to make the motion to approve the layout of Ray Street as previously presented?
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So we're moving on to item F, which is a citizen's petition to amend the zoning bylaw. We heard a little bit about this earlier from Aton. I think we have James Warden here with us. He's over there, yeah. No, we can't hear you, James.
I thought you guys had control of that mic, not me. Should I start?
Yes, tell us what you, yes.
Okay. The chair laid things out pretty well and discussed, I think, our significant discussion over, I think, was it 5 or 6 meetings, planning board meetings. And I think really good discussions we made. We got a lot of great help and added a lot of information, caveats, restrictions to the whole thing, and also expanded it to the old center area. So it's not a spot zoning like one property or one street, but the officially defined zone as the old center historic district, which is, you guys know the area that is. So the concept is to allow very restricted, very limited, and very invisible uses that are, considered commercial for these historic buildings, to give a small amount of income for those buildings to be maintained and preserved so that they aren't sitting vacant. As you see, sometimes these buildings fall into disrepair and fall down. They become a derelict, and that's very sad for these older buildings. And this particular building is has definitely some issues. I've done, as has Brad Waitman, tons of work on our barns to keep them standing up straight and proper. But we also think this is kind of a neat, very, very low impact, very little potential bad consequences or unattended consequences, to give an inspirational use for these buildings that's very, very low impact. So to describe that a little bit, by low impact, we came up with the idea of nothing is visible outside the 4 walls. There isn't equipment, stuff, storage, materials, trucks, trailers, anything outside the building. Whatever's happening is inside the building. So be it art, artists working inside, or this kind of prototyping, very light office. It also is defined as no cars can be parked on the street, and preferably the cars should be parked with planning board's approval out of sight from the street. So we put that additional layer on top. The goal is really to keep the rural, bucolic look and feel of the area as it is, because no one wants that to change. It's also important that and this came up, and the chair discussed this too, but it's been brought up by several, different people in town, both when I discussed this with them privately and also at planning board meetings. Mike Linehan talked about it, which is that this has nothing to do with what you can legally do in your barn as a homeowner in that R1, R3 area. Whatever's approved and legal now, if you're doing that, you can continue to do that. This has nothing to do with that. Again, the chair discussed that because there's a little bit of confusion that with all the restrictions we're putting on this potential bylaw, people are like, wait, I can only do art and prototyping. I can't, do whatever else I was doing. I can't, weld something or fix my truck and anything you can legally do as a homeowner in your barn. This has no effect on it. As the chair explained, it's an overlay, meaning there's new things this will allow you to do. And my easy way of explaining that to people is this is allowing a use that a homeowner can essentially rent their barn to, let's say, a sculptor or a painter or someone prototyping or someone that wants to have a small office with 2 people in it. They could rent that to someone to use their historic barn in the Old Center Historic District. And as the chair also, and you guys talked about it, this could then, if it's successful and it works well, it could be expanded to more areas or potentially the whole town if it worked and made sense. So that's kind of a quick snapshot of it. I don't know if Peter Boynton has anything else to add, or the chair of the planning board to what I said, or if there's any questions, I'm happy to talk about those.
James, I have a question. How broadly is barn, being defined in as it relate to the overlay district?
How broadly?
Yeah.
So it's a building that has a proven use as an agricultural building, if that's what you mean, like the definition of it, in the whole confines of the Old Center Historic District Commission. Even if the boundary goes through that barn or building, then it's included as in the district. But does that answer it?
I can give you the definition. So the definition, definition is at least 50 years old, remains sufficient integrity of design, materials, and construction to clearly identify the barn as an agricultural building, and meets criteria for historical structure by national, state, or local historic entity. I think B is what answers your question. Retains sufficient integrity of design, materials, and construction to clearly identify the barn as an agricultural building. It can't be a garage or a shed or another house. It has to, quack like a barn.
Yeah, that answers my question. Thank you.
Is there any size? Barns are typically on the larger side.
I don't think we put a size restriction. I mean, I think no. I mean, but again, it's got to be historic. You can't build a new barn unless you want to try to be 50 years from now. I mean, that's pretty forward thinking, but.
The jurisdiction of the overlay district is the same as the Old Center Historic District Commission. Does this, does it affect any of that commission's, governing, kind of authority, or is it just, it's really parallel to it?
Parallel, but again, this is for interior, and so if you wanted to make any changes to an exterior of the barn, you would still have to go to them for whatever approvals you would need.
Thank you.
Yep.
If somebody wants to go down this path using the barn that way, who do they have to go?
It's a special permit from the planning board.
Okay. So they still have to come before you?
Yep.
Just
Yeah.
to make sure it's a barn.
Well, so first you got to go to the building inspector to mark off that you make the historic barn. That check mark, that goes to the building inspector. Then it would come to the planning board basically for your use, right? Are you manufacturing something light, or are you, using dangerous chemicals? And we'd say, no, if you're meeting all the other criteria, show the layout of what parking and how many people and all that kind of stuff, then you get your permit. But you have to mark all those boxes.
And then who follows up once these
Well, then, once you're approved, it would be like any other special permit. Now you have the right to do it. You're zoned for it and allowed to do it. So really, it would be if there's a complaint to the building inspector that someone's not following the zoning or not in compliance with their permit.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, James? Good? Yep.
Yep, yeah. Say it better than I would.
Any other questions? No? Comments? No. Thank you, James, for coming tonight, and for Aton for giving us some explanation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to move on to our citizens petition to amend general bylaw 160-1 and 160-2. Pat Hennessy is here.
Good evening. My name is Pat Hennessy. I live at 636 Chicken Road. And I'm here tonight to brief you on our request for trash removal at Brookside Townhomes. We have two buildings on Chickering Road, 9 units and 6 units, and two buildings on East Water Street, 9 units and 5 units. And to get the trash removal, we would have to amend town bylaws, chapter 160, 1A, that says contains fewer than 9, and we would like to change that to 10 living units. 1B says it's not part of any apartment or condo complex containing 9, and we would like to change that to 10 units. B2 says notwithstanding the foregoing, the town will provide customarily residential trash pickup for the residential units of Village Green at North Andover Condominium Trust, which are located on duly accepted public ways. Notwithstanding the foregoing, the town will provide customary residential trash pickup for the owner-occupied townhouse homes of Andrew Circle. And we would like to add, and Brookside Homeowners Association. Townhouse Homes is a nonprofit organization of 8, and we'd like to change that to 9. Residential units per building, 3, and we'd like to change that to 4 buildings total. On 160-2, placement for refuse for pickup. Service will be provided only if the refuse and trash are placed on the side of the highway in front of said residence or multiple dwelling building. And we would like to add trash and refuse pickup will be at the rear driveway of Brookside Townhomes. We are not condos. We are homeowners. We own our townhouses. We own the land. We do pay our taxes. The town came in last year in August. I believe the town might have changed trash haulers. I'm not sure on that, but they came in, and the town actually picked up trash for us for 4 months. Then they stopped. We now receive other services by the driveway entrance, including town recycling, NAPD response, NAFD response, Board of Health, Public Works, and other public and private enterprises. And we'd appreciate your support.
Any questions?
So Village Green owns the land that the unit is placed upon, is that what you just said?
I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing. Village
Oh,
Green?
not Village Green, the other one, yours. Brookside, you own the land,
We own the land, right?
so it's a PUD?
It is a PUD.
Okay,
Private
not too
unit
many people know
development.
what a PUD is, but it's when you own the land.
You own the land, there's rules, regulations, bylaws. We have an HOA. A condo has an HOA, but we also have an HOA.
The Mill Pond is also a PUD, there's not,
I believe so.
probably the two of them are probably it was an original concept a long, long time ago.
Around
Is-
here anyways, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know, I don't know that that's something that we could vote on tonight till we find out.
We're not voting on it tonight.
You're not
We're
voting, just
hearing.
a briefing?
Yeah.
Or
he's
your
just-
support.
He's just giving us what he's asking.
So the changes are minimal. We're going from like 9 buildings to 10, 3 buildings to 4. The impact to the town would be minimal. If you look at the number of households we have in town, I believe it's 11 or 12,000. If you add 29 units, you're talking not 2%, you're talking 0.002 additional. So the impact is minimal. And like I say, we do pay our own taxes. We don't get a discount for no trash pickup. And the town already comes in for the trash recycling. but they don't come in for the the recyclables, but they don't come in for the trash.
We don't pay for recycling. My question, which maybe Jim might be able, I'm curious how many other I guess, complexes in the town it will impact, because, right, by changing that, what are we sort of opening ourselves, these are bylaws that were agreed to when these were built, right, like essentially as a when the planning board approved them, it was that they would not receive trash service, is that correct? Can somebody? Yeah, come on. I think you might know.
Jim Stanford, Public Works Director. That's an interesting one because I believe it was approved under approval not required under the planning board, and we're talking, I think, well over 30 years ago.
So it was, okay.
Because they met the zoning and for whatever reasons. It will, I can tell you from Public Works perspective, the request for town municipal solid waste and recycling comes up all the time. Mill Pond has been asking for it for years. It is a cost, I understand it. I think we calculated about, for this one development, $8,500 per year. That's in perpetuity. And we see it as, again, it's a policy decision. It's a bylaw. We always, from a management perspective, you try not to make policy based on one specific case. If it has merit, then you should open it up to more. Because I guarantee you, if you approve this, Mill Pond will be in tomorrow asking for the same thing, or for next year. Quite honestly, I've had commercial properties call all the time saying, how come I can't have trash pickup? You'd save me a lot of money, and we'd be more profitable. And we have to, again, we have to explain. I've had to explain it to large companies that, would it be fair if we all of a sudden had to take the trash for Amazon? So, and I understand this is a residential situation, but again, if it makes sense, then you should probably discuss it based on a wider, because they will come in. And so it is a cost. It absolutely is a cost. I think I've read the old bylaws and some of the discussions that have been brought up over the years. A lot of it resulted from a standpoint that if it's a roadway that is not maintained by the town, which this is the case, their drive, it's a private way, essentially. They maintain it. Public Works does not go onto their property.
Yes, they do.
For the roadway. But, so that was one of the criteria as to whether or not a development should get trash pickup or recycling. Recycling is another issue, and I can certainly talk to that. If the development had enough room for their own dumpsters, again, then they didn't need trash pickup. They could maintain it themselves. So that's it on the solid waste. Now, it was brought up on the recycling. Because this is one that comes up all the time. And yes, we did switch. We didn't switch hauling companies. There's been a merger in town on the recycling side, and then there was a buyout of a company on the solid waste side. So essentially, the companies picking up the recycling has changed. So too is the industry itself. Recyclables 20 years ago had significant value. That all changed within the last 5 years, where it's a commodity. Plastic has, when China was building and accepting all of our waste, recycling was a very lucrative product to get into. And so at the time, as you're aware, recycling is a free service that's offered, that's tied to a site plan for TBI site. We do pay to haul it. We do pay to haul it from North Andover to JRM Greenworks in Peabody. However, the service, the pickup in town, is free. Way back when that agreement was signed with TBI, again, recycling had value. They wanted more recycling, the more the merrier. They would pick up everybody's. And they actually, as part of it, residents are allowed to bring recycling to TBI. That's different than solid waste. We don't have a place where residents can go and drop their own private solid waste. You can bring it to TBI, and it is free to drop it off there. So there's no cost to the town for that aspect of it. We did find a number of places who weren't on the official list to receive recycling townwide pickup. There's been a lot of enlightening things with this new company coming in. And so what we said is, if you have been offering recycling to residents or developments for the last 20 years, you need to continue to do it. It's, and I think Brookside fell into that. And so that's how that came about. But as far as the solid waste, it will be an expense in perpetuity, and there will be others that will come forward.
Are others outlined in their planning board decisions that it does not include, like, some of them are clearly outlined that it does not include trash pickup?
I think that's a typical thing that you would see in a planning board decision. This was approval not required, A&R
Right.
plans. And I can't really speak to that on the planning side of it, but there are comments in there that they would be responsible for their own trash pickup.
Any other?
I don't.
I think we need a lot more fact.
We'll have to, get some more information.
Info digging before we get.
The only thing I can reiterate is that you're adding 29 units. You're talking .002 additional units out of 11 or 12,000, whatever we have in town. And you're not looking at Mill Pond, which is, I don't know how many units are there, probably over 100. Village Green, a couple hundred. So, I mean, we're 29. You pick up now at Andrew Circle, which has 32 units, and we have 29, so.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. We appreciate.
I'm sorry?
I said thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate.
Thank you.
We will definitely take it under consideration. I'm going to jump over to licensing. And then we'll circle back. So if I'll take a motion to open the licensing.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are now on licensing. Do we have anyone who's here? Are you here for licensing? Yeah. Okay.
I hope so. You're
Which-
the only one left.
Which one? Okay, mind if we take these out of order so we can move on? Do I need to make a motion, take them out of order?
No.
Okay, great. You just introduce yourself and.
Hi, my name's Stephen Dixon. I'm the owner of the Boston Charter Company. It's our DBA. Stevie's on Main is the LLC.
Excellent. And you're here for a common victual license?
Yes.
So you're taking over the business, as I understand it?
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and background?
Yeah, so I've been in the restaurant business my whole life, went to school for it. I've been running the Boston Charter Company for the original owners for the last over 10 years now. And the opportunity was given to me just a little while ago to take over the business, purchase the business. So I said yes. So now I'm here.
You make a great chowder.
You're not going to change anything, are you?
No, don't fix it if it's not broken. So we've been doing a heck of a job with it for the last 10 years, so we're going to continue on, yeah.
Okay.
Excited to have you.
Thank you.
Or keep you.
Any other questions for Mr. Dixon?
So you're going to change the name?
No.
No.
Yeah, we have too many
No, the
loyal
name's great.
people that I think we'd scare away if we did that, so. But Stevie's on Main was just a tribute to our son. Yeah. So that's why we have the LLC. Yeah.
Well, just curious, are you buying the other Boston Charter locations as well, or
Not
just?
now.
Okay.
Who knows? Who knows?
One step at a Who knows what the
We're a
future
month.
holds.
We're a month in. We'll see what happens. Yeah.
All right, if there's no other questions, I'll take a motion.
I move that the Select Board, acting as licensing commissioners, approve the application from Stephen Dixon of Stevie's on Main LLC, DBA Boston Chowder Company for a common particular license on 109 Main Street.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
And thank you for your patience.
Okay, back to item A. We have an application from North Andover Country Club for a change of officers, directors, and managers. I reviewed the application. Everything seems to be in order, so I'll take a motion.
I move that the Select Board, acting as licensing commissioners, approve the application from North Andover Country Club for a change of officers slash directors slash LLC managers.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll move to item B, application for renewal of a secondhand dealer license from Christina Braga Ferreira Aruda of Ava Moon Vintage Antiques at 67 Main Street. Again, this is another renewal.
I'll move that the Select Board, acting as licensing commissioners, approve the application for renewal of a second-hand dealer license from Christina Braga Ferreira Aruda of Ava Moon Vintage Antiques, 67 Main Street.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. And our final application is the application from Paul Gallant of Merrimack College for a one-day wine and malt liquor license for a senior barbecue beer garden event on Saturday, April 27th, 2024, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Again, this application is in your packet, and everything seems to be in order here. I wouldn't mind giving them having someone here to give a little bit of lecture of college kids and drinking, but I'm guessing they've done this. They've done this before. I understand.
The seniors are the problem.
Any discussion?
Do we make a motion?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Okay.
I'll take a
I'll
motion.
move that the Select Board, acting as licensing commissioners, approve the application from Paul Gallant of Merrimack College for a one-day wine and malt liquor license for a senior barbecue slash beer garden event on Saturday, April 27, 2024, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m.
I'll second
I
that.
have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And I'll take a motion on closing the license commission.
Motion to move out of licensing.
Second.
That's a very quick second. Geez, you guys want to add a license? Yeah. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Wait, I'm assuming did we actually approve the Merrimack College?
Yes.
We did? Okay,
Yep,
sorry, I
yep,
must have
yep.
missed it. Thank you.
Yep, we are out of licensing. Back to you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go back to item H to confirm a 6:30 PM start time for a town meeting. Anybody want to argue that?
We're
I'll
gonna-
move
we're
that
gonna
the
be there
Select
either way.
Board, I'll move that the Select Board set the start time for town meeting as 6:30 PM on May 14th, 2024.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in
Is
favor?
it used to be, has it been, how long, is it usually 7 and we're just moving it back to 6:30?
It's usually at 6, we just have to approve.
We have to
Okay,
approve
okay,
it, yeah.
okay.
It starts generally around 7. Yeah.
Okay.
They want people assembled. I'm sure.
Yeah, everybody good with 6:30?
Yep.
6:30
All right,
works.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Are we gonna do any warrant articles? We're gonna, yeah? Okay.
We doing all of them tonight?
Yes, all of them. No. I do, some of them.
So 1 through 4 are the standard articles that you guys do every year.
Yep.
The reports, the contracts in excess of 3 years, accepting grants of easements and granting easements. So those first 4 are all pretty standard. So you just need, you can take them all together if you want, with your recommendation.
We can do them all together. We usually take them all together at town meeting too, don't we?
Yeah, they'll be consent.
Consent,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if you want to do 1 through 4.
Okay.
I'll move the select board to recommend favorable action on Articles 1 through 4.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5, the dog, Brad. Yeah, he'll be here next meeting to discuss this warrant article.
Which one specifically?
The next one, Article 5, which
Okay.
is the animal control bylaw. It was just easier, there's there's just changes to the current bylaw that he's suggesting, so he's gonna come in and explain that. That's a long one.
Yeah, it is a long one.
And then I don't think, unless you want to make any other recommendations on things that you heard tonight, I don't think the rest of them, there are some planning board ones, but I don't know if you want more time.
The planning board hasn't.
No,
They have actually.
They've made their. Okay.
Oh,
That's right, yeah.
6 is also just a housekeeping one. So last year at town meeting, we accepted Mass General Law, Chapter 41, so this bylaw is not needed anymore. So I don't know if you want to vote on that. And then the financial ones, you should wait.
Until FinCom.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the planning board ones were the Ray Street, which was presented tonight, and the Woodley Road. Don't know if you're ready for those or not. But planning board did vote on both of those.
It was like, we accepted, right, and now it has to.
So what you did is you accepted the layout plan.
And then we have to.
Then you have to
recommend-
make a
yeah, we have to make
recommendation
a
to
recommendation.
accept the street at town meeting, and then if it is accepted at town meeting, you will then have another public hearing to accept the deeds.
If everybody doesn't mind, I mean, I'd like a minute to just digest what we heard tonight, and then we can vote on them next meeting.
23 and 24?
Mm-hmm. Same with the historic barn.
They did withdraw the map for Article 26, so and they also withdrew it for the MBTA communities. If you remember in the past, they've always had 2 articles whenever zoning changed. One would be the actual zoning article itself, and then the other one would be the map. You don't need that, so it's all done as part of the articles. Article 27 is the one that was just presented on the trash pickup. And then 28 is the MBTA.
Anyone? No, I think we can vote on that. We can vote on the withdrawal of the bylaw.
Okay. So, do you want me to go back to that one? That was Article 6.
Is any, Lori, that you think we need to wait on? Please say so.
You're not doing any of the financial articles?
No.
Yeah.
And on 27, you wanted more information on that one.
You know, sometimes Melissa will give us a reason why we need to wait or something, so I just don't want to vote on
Yeah, I
something
think
and then go, oops.
Well, yeah, no, I think these are all pretty.
This is Article 6. We're just deleting the bylaw. Because last year we accepted the general law that doesn't mean anything anymore. It's just cleaning it up.
And we make a favorable recommendation is to remove the bylaw.
Correct.
Yes.
So I'll move that the select board recommend favorable action on Article 6.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then you want to do the MBTA one?
Yeah, Madam
Who
Chair.
else is gonna, sorry, who else is gonna provide recommendations on MBTA, just us in planning?
It's a long one.
It is.
It's almost as long as the
Is
animal
the
control
control?
one.
Yeah, just
Us
and
and-
the planning board
Yep.
already did.
Then they already did. Yep, I'm comfortable with
So
that.
it's up to you.
Madam
Yeah, I'll
Chair,
take a motion.
I'll move the select board recommend favorable action on Article 28.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And we're going to go on to item J with Andrew McDevitt stepping down or retiring from the school committee. We need, within 20 days, we need to appoint somebody else to Kittredge. They did not do that at the school committee meeting, so we're going to appoint the chair to the committee.
Do we have any color as I
meaning
watch the
yourself.
meeting?
No, Dave Brown.
Dave Brown.
Yeah. Dave Brown.
Oh, okay. I was like, okay.
I'm just gonna take it, well, I'm on it anyway, but, no,
We're appointing Dave in the interim just to be compliant with the
we have to
policy.
comply
You
with
have
it.
to comply with MSBA.
I would have voted for you. I was just like, oh.
Got it.
No, in order to be compliant with MSBA, we have to fill
Have a
that
chair.
seat within 20 days of it being vacated.
Got it. Okay.
Madam Chair, I'll move that the Select Board appoint the Chair of the School Committee, Dave Brown, to the Kittredge School Building Committee.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You might be surprised, right?
No.
All right, consent items. We have a donation of $51,930 from the Friends of North Andover Senior Center.
Was that all from the Friends? It's such a big number. I thought, oh, was that part of Amazon that were,
No, I believe that's all from the Friends.
Wow.
wow, good for them.
Yeah,
Congratulations to them. What a nice thing.
yeah, they did a great job.
I'll move that the select board accept the donation from the Friends of North Andover Senior Center in the amount of $51,930.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
I'll add the Dick Valancourt Memorial.
There we go.
We have to send a nice note of
Yes,
thanks, please.
yes. So you're going to take that role?
I'll take that role, yes, Madam Chair.
All right. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approval of minutes from March 25th. Has everybody had a chance to read those? Any modifications?
No, I haven't. Good.
All right, I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll move Select Board approve the open session minutes of March 25th, 2024 as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we have one abstention
Abstain.
because he was not here. Or he was here, but he wasn't on the board.
Correct.
So any select board updates?
The veterans,
Oh, yes.
unbelievable job for our Vietnam veterans. I mean, it was so moving. It was so well done. It was the third one. There was the first one, and then they had the other one, and then the first one it poured rain. It was we all got soaked. Then they had another one after. I'm getting help me. One got hit by a car, and they backed in, and that's why we had to redo it. And then this one, and the beautiful thing about this one is they included members of surrounding communities, which was so moving and so wonderful, and it was a fantastic crowd. And everyone put up with the freezing cold because it was cold. I said to you, can I stand behind you to get the wind off me? And he goes, sure, that's fine. No, it was really cold.
It was a beautiful ceremony.
But it was a beautiful, beautiful ceremony. And the monument looks fantastic. And they were brothers and sisters in arms for our country and our freedom. It's really nice that they're neighbors and brothers and sisters in arms at that location. It's really remarkable, and it was beautifully done.
It was amazing, the turnout. I mean,
Yeah.
how far, it wasn't just our immediate neighbors, it was as far as Cape Ann
And special thanks again to retired police officer Dave Rand, who pushed us all, kept us going. Just saying, and didn't let it go when it got accidentally hit by a car or whatever it was. He just kept pushing us to pull it together, and it was a wonderful ceremony. It was so nice that he was and he got acknowledged quite nicely at the event. So yeah, it was great.
That was good.
But it was cold.
Anyone else?
The Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
grand
Big one.
opening
One
this morning.
big building.
That was
Opened up
exciting.
very early this morning.
And
We got the
obvi-
ribbon for Amazon.
Yeah, and also obviously good luck to the robotics team at the high school that's heading to Worlds.
Yeah.
So
I thought it was nationals, but
it's Worlds, so it's very exciting.
It was a great ceremony, and what they highlighted, which so well deserved, is that we here in the Merrimack Valley with that Amazon site will be like the pinnacle for AI and robotics and everything else.
And those robots are built and designed here in Massachusetts.
They
which is
are.
so cool.
In Reading or North Reading,
North
actually.
Reading, yeah. Yeah.
So it was a good day.
Our
Yeah.
takeover starts here. It was, I was trying to describe to people I work with in my family just the cavernous expanse of that building, looking from
We
one
only
side.
saw like one tiny
Oh my
little
God.
part of it, right? So.
Really
It's
is.
amazing that we
That
get our
corridor went on
deliveries.
forever.
It went on forever. You're lost in there.
It's quite impressive that we get our deliveries.
But if,
So
as we
quickly.
saw, when you put your order in, it is in good hands. That,
Mm-hmm.
it is so fine-tuned. They even make, the item comes through and they have a custom-made box within like seconds that wraps it, so you don't need the fillers and all that other stuff, which is another really good thing. Bless you.
Bless you.
It was a good morning.
Yeah,
It
it
really was.
It was good for North Andover, for sure.
And
Listen,
for the
our
Merrimack
delivery
Valley.
times from Amazon have already decreased. It's amazing.
That's all my kids keep asking, is like, can we get it faster? Do we get
And
our stuff
50
faster?
At this time, 1,500 new jobs for the area. How great is that?
Yeah.
And some great tax revenue for the community.
That's great.
And community development agreement.
Great job pinch hitting, Laura. Only update I have is our website reveal meeting is tomorrow for the new website.
Are you ready for the big reveal?
Yeah, the big reveal,
Something
yeah.
Something on TV.
And the tentative launch date is going to be 21st of May. We'll make sure we did it after
okay.
town
You
meeting.
got some
Yes,
time.
after town meeting.
After town
Yeah.
meeting. We have one thing at a
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
that's the tentative launch date right now. So
And I forget if we even talked about this last meeting, but we have a designer for Kittredge. We have signed an agreement, right, with Machado, Silvero? Is it Silvero?
Savetti.
Savetti. Machado. So we look forward to working with them. We're excited. They're excited too, which is nice.
No coin toss that were required
There was no
for that?
coin toss, no.
That
And
was
just-
front page article.
was a
I
front
think.
page article. That has happened how many times in history? Once. 0. I'm sorry. Okay, I was going to say
and
once.
that warranted
But
an
we're
article in the
ready in
Tribune.
case
We're ready,
it
yeah.
does.
Back up front page.
We don't have, right, we need it.
It's very
in
rare
case
that
it
it
does
would-
happen, we're
Yeah.
just being prepared.
Just prepared. And it's recommended from the Inspector General.
Exactly.
All right, so who would like to go through Melissa's town report?
I'm ready,
All
if
right,
you would
here
like
we
me
go.
to. Okay. So for upcoming meetings and events and deadlines, so excise bills were due on March 14th. Demand fees are going to be added as of April 10th. Townwide cleanup day is April 21st from 9 to 1. Hazardous waste day is the 20th from 9 to 1. North Andover Housing Production Plan virtual info session is on the 17th from 6 to 7:30. The Sears Center is opening on the 1st, and sticker sales are on sale now. Lake usage permits are available April 10th, starting at 8 a.m. Some financials, we're working closer with the school to better understand their current deficit and how we can assist ways to help them with that offset. Some employee updates. Special thanks to Veterans Director Joe LeBlanc and Veterans Services Officer Julianne Kemp for their amazing Veterans Day event. We're currently hiring for a Treasury Department assistant and an assessing department assistant. So if you know of anyone, please send that along. And kudos to Rick and Demi at the Youth Center for another successful summer fun sign-up. Some capital updates. Starting on the 1st, work will begin to replace the curbing along Middlesex Streets and Edmonds Road with new sloped granite curbing, and then preparing the sidewalk and road surfaces for restoration along Edmonds, Morris Street, Middlesex, 2nd Street, 3rd Street, Milton Street, Richardson Ave, and Pilgrim Street. And the middle school, the framing continues. It's exciting. The walls are being built and sprinklers are going in. For town meeting, the Kittredge School Design Funds will be removed from this year's town meeting and inserted further down in the capital plan. And then updates, as we already heard, the planning board voted unanimously to support the MBTA communities legislation. And special thanks to Jean and Andrew for their exceptional work. And there's also a link on the website. So if you go to our website and to the planning page, you can find the link to the MBTA communities multifamily zoning information there. That is it.
Lots of energy.
Lots of stuff.
2 hour plus meeting.
It's my third thing of iced tea.
Just like it all day.
She says that lovingly.
Laura, yeah, you did.
I think.
I do say I love it.
Just give it right back.
It's a very happy office with you in it.
Our next meeting is April 22nd, here in the Select Board Room at 7 PM. And I will take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.